Hi everybody, this is Oksana and today we're going to make this fun little pumpkin pendant. It's got an additional little accent stone up here, so it's a 2-stone pendant and it looks like a pumpkin. So since you guys are heading into fall over there in the US, I thought this would be good timing, although here in Australia we're just wrapping up our winter and heading into spring. So it's a little bit different, but I still love pumpkins. I love them any time of the year. And before we get started here, I just want to say that this particular tutorial and design is at an intermediate level. So if you are a beginner, I wouldn't recommend this as one of your first projects that you make, as it can be a little bit frustrating and tricky. I do have another pumpkin tutorial that I will link down below, and I'll put it in the comments as well, and that one is easier. That one's a better beginner pumpkin tutorial. So without further ado, let's get started. For our base wires, we're going to be using 21 gauge square copper wire. I have this big spool of it from Rio Grande. This is dead soft, and you are going to need 4 pieces. And my 4 pieces measure to be about 13 inches long. And my stone, it's a thulite, and it's an oval, and it is almost exactly an inch. For my other wire, I'm going to be using this 24 gauge half round wire. It's also dead soft copper, and I'm just going to keep it on the spool and just grab a little end of it here. Then I'm going to take my 4 wires and I'm going to hold them kind of roughly in the middle, try to figure out where the middle is. And then I'm going to take my half round wire, flat side down, rounded side up, and I'm just going to wrap it around to make a connection. So with this one, you want to wrap around enough times that it stays put, but you don't want it to be very long. So about 5 times should be good, somewhere in that ballpark. So I'm going to take my wire cutters now, and I'm going to trim the little wire ends so they are both here on this side. And then with my pliers here, I'm going to press down on those little wire ends and then just press down on this whole little connection bit here. And then if it's separated a little bit, you can bring it together like that. So for my pliers, let me show you what I will be using. So you need wire cutters. Mine are Lindstrom brand. You need pliers. These are the Lindstrom Rx 7890, and then you'll need round nose pliers as well. Mine are Lindstrom Rx 7590. So wire cutters, pliers, and round nose pliers. So then you want to take your stone, and we're going to be bending this frame around our stone. The stone is going to be positioned like this instead of, the normal way of positioning ovals, so we get more of a pumpkin look. And the little wire ends are going to be touching the stone to hide them. So I'm going to center that on this edge of my stone, and I'm going to start to kind of bend it. You want to probably put this down on a table. I'm doing this in the air so that you can get a good view, but if it's on a flat surface, it'd probably be easier to bend and less slippery to hold. So I bent around the bottom. I bent my wires around the bottom. I'm continuing to bend them. So I'm just repositioning my grip here. So now I'm holding it on the bottom part that has already been bent, and now I am bending them here at the top. So now we want these wires to come together at the top. So we're just gonna kind of curve them, try to get them here right in the middle of the stone. This is all pretty similar to making a normal pendant so far. Like, this is how we usually make our wire frame. It's just a little bit unusual to have the stone positioned this way, and so it can be a little tricky to bend this frame. All right, so now I've got them coming together. Let me just double check from all different angles that it looks centered. Yeah, that looks to be right in the middle. Our little wrap is still here in the middle. All right, so we can take the stone out temporarily, and what we're gonna do is we're gonna connect this, but we are gonna use a little scrap piece of wire, or if you don't have a little scrap piece of wire, just cut yourself a piece of that half round wire that we've been using. Basically what you want to do, just like a few inches long so you can wrap it around a few times. You want to line these all up nicely so you have 4 wires. You don't want any of them to crisscross. You want to line them all up, kind of stack them together. Then you're going to take your little scrap piece here and you're going to wrap it around to keep that together. Like this. And I find this personally helps me doing it this way. Some of you might be wondering, well, why don't you just do like a normal wire and just do it normally? But for whatever reason, doing it this way makes it a little easier for me to do this next part that I'm going to show you. So I'm taking my stone, I'm popping it in here. All right, so I put my stone back in. It obviously isn't really being held from the front or back and can easily pop out. So here's what we're gonna do. First, we're gonna secure it from the back. Now you can do the normal thing where you bend the wires onto the back, or I like to do it this way for the pumpkins. So I'm just gonna lift up this backmost wire just a little bit, both of them, so one on each side. Just kind of lifted it up a little bit, and then what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna find the corresponding wires here. So that's these 2 wires. So this is the wire, it's going up, 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 and then here it is here. So I'm holding the stone in the frame. This part is important so you don't misshape your frame so the stone no longer fits. So you want to hold the stone in there. I know it doesn't really want to stay right now. And what you want to do is pull, just kind of gently pull on these wires here. They should pull through quite easily because there isn't a lot holding them here, so they kind of slide through that little wrap that we've created. And this is what happens. We basically trapped our stone from the back. As you can see, the wires here are no longer bent in this curve, so you can just use your pliers or fingers to kind of bend them into the proper position. And this is good practice for what we're going to do here now on the front. So on the front, we are going to pick up the frontmost wires and we are going to raise them up. Try to have them be kind of equally raised like this. And I'm pressing down on my stone so it isn't popping out of my frame. And then I'm gonna find where this wire is. Here it is, it's just that top wire here. So here's the both of them. and I'm just gonna grab it and just gently pull on it. And I'm gonna do that to the other side, just a little bit at a time, each side. There we go. Let's see if that's even. All right, so this one is a little bit more raised. You can kind of press on them as well with your fingers. See, I'm pressing them against the stone, and I'm also kind of making it more narrow this way. You can press on them this way to make it more narrow. And now we're gonna do the next wire. So we're just gonna grab it here, kind of raise it a little bit here and a little bit there. And now we wanna find, so these front two wires are gonna be our bail. So I'm just gonna go ahead and kind of bend it forward a little bit, and also it helps me get them out of the way so I don't accidentally pull on them again. So this wire is this next one, and then this wire is this one. Okay, so again, just very gently pulling on it a little bit. See how it started to move this wire? Now we can kind of press on it with our finger, and that looks like good positioning. Now we're gonna do this next one. Just gonna make sure they're symmetrical to each other, like one isn't a bigger gap than the other. That looks good to me. So what I'm gonna do now is this little area up here. So our stone is now locked in from the back and the front. So this little area, I'm just gonna press on it. Just get those wires all nice and tight and together. Have a nice little spot here where we are gonna now take our half round wire, which is still connected to the spool. And what I'm gonna do is I kind of slid this up, this little messy wrap. I don't wanna remove it right now. If I remove it, these are gonna start to come apart. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna take my wire, which is connected to the spool, and this time I'm gonna do kind of a nice tight, neat wrap here. Just get it started in the little area that you have until, you know, this wire starts getting in the way. Then I'm gonna take my little wire end and put it from back to front just through this little gap. This is just how I like to finish off my little ends. I'm gonna press on this, and I'm gonna trim this little wire end there. So now I'm gonna go ahead and unravel the little scrap wire that we did before and get it out of the way. So that's part of the reason I do the little scrap wire, because it can be kind of more loose and messy and gives you more room to move. But then when I do the final wire, I like to be like really tight. I just really pressed like all my wires together. So I'm gonna go just a few more times. My wire's kind of twisting. There we go, untwist it. Oh, sorry you guys, I said something incorrectly earlier. I just want to correct myself. These front two wires are not going to be my bail in this case. You can treat this as a normal pendant now, right? Because it has the pumpkin look, and if there's like a bail design from my previous tutorials that you like, even just like that basic side swoop design or something, you could definitely do that and it would still give you the pumpkin look here. But for the design that I want to do, the bail is actually not the front two wires. So then we're going to bend the next two wires forward, and then the back two wires are getting bent backwards, and this is going to be our bail here. So these are the 2 wires that are not in the very back, but next to it here. So I'm going to continue wrapping this, and then I'm going to wrap about 3/4 of an inch in length for my bail here. So I'm just turning the piece, guiding this little half round wire, and you can see it's starting to form that little wrap there. So I'll just keep going off camera because it's really repetitive. Just wrap it around and around and around until you're about 3/4 of an inch. So once it's tall enough, we're going to trim so that the wire end is on the back. This is the back. And then we are going to pinch that down and press along all of this bail like this. Now we're going to take the back 2 wires and we are going to bend them to the left side here like this. And then we are going to take the next 2 wires that are the closest to the bail here, and we're just going to raise them up a little bit like that. So let's attach our bail, and then we're going to do something with those wires. So I'm just curving it into the bail shape. Feel free to use something round to curve around, like bail making pliers or any kind of tool. I'm just doing it with my fingers, and I'm putting those little wire ends here just right through that little gap. And I'm taking my pliers to help me kind of guide that through, and then I'm going to press on this like that. And then here are our wires coming through the front. So we're going to take the leftmost wire and we are going to wrap it around the edge here, and we're going to trim it and tuck it in that area there in the back. So here's our little wire end, tucking that away and pressing down. And then this wire here, I'm just going to pull on it, and then I'm going to get in here as close as I can and cut it as short as I can, like this. All right, so now it's time to work with these 2 wires. These are the ones right in front of the bail here. And I am going to add a little tiny stone. This is similar to, I'll link the tutorial this is similar to. It's just, this is like a pumpkin version of that. So I have this tiny stone. It is 5 millimeters. It's a Peridot. It's just a little green stone. I thought that would make it look like maybe leaves. So what I'm gonna do is just kind of balance it on here. I know it's kind of hard to see, but if I let it go, it's gonna fall. Oh, and it fell anyway. All right, so I'm putting the little stone here. Just gonna cover it up temporarily. And I'm taking these 2 wires and I'm wrapping them around the stone. Hold on, I'll show you in a second. There we go. So I'm just gonna wrap them all the way around. And then I'm gonna take the wire that's kind of the outer wire here, bend it down, and then this wire, I'm gonna wrap it around one more time, focusing on making that little window that's going kind of around the stone a little bit smaller than the stone itself, so it doesn't pop out. All right, so I've made a smaller window and the stone doesn't fall out. And then the back of it is being supported by my bail here, and we are going to kind of reinforce that as well. So we're going to take these 2 wires and we're going to bend them to the back. Before we lock them in place, I'm just going to look over this little wrap that we've created. I'm gonna make any adjustments, kind of make sure it's all good. And now I'm gonna trim these 2 wires here and tuck away those little wire ends in here. And then press on them. All right, so now with these 2 wires, I am going to twist one of them. It's up to you if you want to do that, but with square wires, if you hold and turn, it creates a twist because the flat edges of the square start to get twisted like this. This is just for decoration and is optional. So now what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna line these 2 wires together, these next 2 wires here, and I'm gonna bend them up around the edge of the stone. This is gonna help trap that little stone in there. Okay, so I'm bending them here. Now up here, I'm gonna do a little loop for decoration as well. If you don't like this loop, you can just keep going and not do it. And I'm just going to try and hold that with my pliers. There we go, make it nice and flat. And now it's gonna come around this other side. Like this. And now I'm going to trim the wires because I'm going to make swirls. So first I'm trimming this wire so that I can make a swirl with it, and then I'm trimming the other one a little longer. I might need to trim it some more later. I don't know if this is short enough, but basically you can always trim your wires shorter. So if you trim them and they're too long, even if you've already made your little swirl, you can come in and trim it some more. So I'm taking my round nose pliers and I'm kind of squishing the tip of that wire there, and then I am curving it. And I've made a swirl. Now the other wire is going to go this way. I can tell that it is really long. So now I will trim it some more. And now I'm going to come in here with my round nose pliers, kind of squish and start making my little swirl just a little bit at a time. Keep swirling it. And let's see, we are going to attach them. So I'm just looking at the position of that. I think that would look good attached right here. Next, we are gonna work on these 2 wires. So the first wire, we're gonna swoop it across the front here. And then we're gonna trim it. I already trimmed it accidentally. And then we're gonna leave ourselves a little end here to make another swirl. So I'm just squishing the tip. And I am just making a swirl. Like this, and I'm trying to position it just right in the center there. Of course, it's not going to stay. It's going to move around, but we will attach it and then everything will stay put. All right, so now we have all these swirls, and then with this last wire, we are gonna make a little leaf. So to do that, I'm kind of curving it here. I'm shaping it by just kind of giving it a curve. So imagine this being a leaf. This is how I am determining where the end of it will be, like the little pointy tip. So I think it would be like here. So I'm gonna bend that. I'll lift it up so you can see better. So I'm bending it and I'm squishing it together like this. All right, so this is the tip of the little leaf. And now I'm going to take this wire and I'm going to bend it this way. And I'm going to curve it. This is kind of a big leaf. All right, so this is turning out to be a gigantic leaf. So what I'm gonna do in my attempt to make it a little bit smaller is I'm gonna put a little swirl here just by curving my wire around. So some of my wire will get used up in this little swirl. And then I will have less wire here for the leaf. So now the leaf has been shortened. Now I'm just going to go in here into this swirl and I'm going to move it just the tiniest bit more downwards as I adjust my leaf here. I'm just trying to make it like the perfect size and shape. So feel free to kind of play around with it. All right, so I like the way that looks. And now I just have to get rid of this wire. So what I'm gonna do is just very gently lift it up and put it from front to back through just like a gap up here, whatever gap is closest. And you just have to do this really slowly and carefully because you don't want to distort your little leaf too much. Like if I just yank on this wire, it might just make my leaf super tiny and squish it all. So I'm just doing a little bit at a time. You can even just kind of like feed it through. All right, let's bring these wires a little closer together. So whenever you're happy with your little leaf, this wire here, we're gonna just trim it and hide away the wire end. The way we're gonna do that is, here it is here, the little wire end. We're just gonna have it facing forward and kind of like into the leaf itself so that when you press down on it, oops, just gonna press it down. There we go. And then the wire end is kind of pointing this way, but you don't see it from the front because we have all these wires here from the leaf kind of blocking it. So there we go. All right, so now all we have to do is attach all of these components because they are not attached and they can move. So it can get caught in clothing or hair and lift up. Even this little swirl here that I can't lift right now, but it can get lifted up. So I like to attach everything and make sure it's secure. So we're gonna be using little bits of this half round wire that we used for the bail. So I cut myself a piece, it's probably like 5 inches or so. And what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna kind of fold it in half and I'm gonna put it through here and then through this swirl. I'm attaching this middle swirl by doing this. So it's coming from front to back and it's going through that little swirl, but then on the other side of this wire, and it's basically attaching the swirl to the wire, except before it's attached, we have to do something with these little wire ends. So I'm taking them, they're kind of crisscrossing here, as you can see. Oops, sorry, they're crisscrossing. And I'm gonna work with that crisscross and put one on each side. So it's kind of the half rounded side facing me and the flat side facing the other wires. So again, here it is from the front. So I'm going to use this little end and I'm going to attach my little leaf with it. So I'm going to take it and I'm going to put it through the leaf, and then with my pliers here I'm going to pull it out so it's coming through the leaf, and I'm going to attach my leaf to this wire here. So I'm going to take it. Now that it's already going through the leaf, I only have to wrap it around this wire. So I'm putting it underneath the wire and I'm kind of pulling on it, and I'm just going to make a few wraps here to make sure that it doesn't unravel. Probably want to do at least 5 wraps, but you can do more if you'd like. And then after you've done that, you just trim and leave yourself a little end. Then we're going to take that little end, we're going to point it downwards and tuck it underneath. And then this wire got a little bit raised up, so I'm just pushing it back down. When I kind of pulled on it when I was wrapping the wire around, it raised it a little bit. And just making sure that it's tucked away nicely. All right, so now this little swirl is attached. It can't lift up, it has the wire there. This little leaf is attached, so we just have to attach these swirls here. So we have this wire coming through, it's on the back, and we are going to put it through this swirl here, and then also underneath. Let's see if I can get it in one try. Wow, so through the swirl and underneath this wire here, we're basically attaching this swirl to this wire. So let's see if you can see that. There it is. See, it's coming underneath this wire. And now if I pull on it, it forms this little wrap here. And now I'm just going to wrap it around to finish. I'm going to wrap it around here on the back around this wire here. So the way that this wire is coming out, it's coming the flat side facing me instead of the half rounded, and that's okay. You can still use your half round wire like that. I know we typically do it the other way and it just looks different, but it's totally fine to do it this way as well. It gives you a little bit of a different look. And this is just on the back anyway, just like a little attachment. It's not really a decorative feature. All right, so here is our little wrap, and I'm gonna trim and tuck away the little wire end here. Just gonna lift this up so that I can tuck it under there. There we go. And now I can press it back down. So up here is attached, but this big swirl, I know theoretically this swirl is attached here, but this is too much of it to leave. Like, look, I can still move it around. So it will be best to attach this one as well. So I'm going to take another piece of half round wire, and I'm going to work that half round wire, the flat side facing me, underneath this wire here. And I'm just going to wrap it around a few times to get it started. All right, so probably at least 3 times. And then I'll just do one more. Here's that little end. I might not even need to trim it. I might be able to just take this little end and just tuck it underneath. But if it's longer, you might need to trim it. So here's the little wrap that I made. I'm going to push it up so it lines up with our little swirl here. And I'm going to take it and put it through the swirl and then through underneath this wire here. So it's going through the swirl and underneath the wire, attaching the swirl to this wire here by forming this little loop. So you can do that just one time, or I'll just do it a second time as well. There we go. And now, before we trim this wire, we just have to wrap it around a few times around just this single wire here, just to make sure it will not unravel. And that's probably good enough. So let me grab my, where did I put my wire cutters? Here they are. And I'm gonna trim that. And then I'm gonna take that little wire end and tuck it away. All right, so now the swirl is attached, and pretty much everything is attached. So here it is here, and I am going to oxidize the copper, which darkens it. I have a video on how I oxidize, and I'll show you how that looks, because I think it's really helpful, because there's a lot of like texture going on here, and it really brings it out. All right, and here it is after I oxidized the copper. So this is the final little pumpkin pendant. I hope you enjoyed this tutorial. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time. Bye.